I never thought I would find myself in this position. My name is Jake, and I own a small but successful marketing firm in Austin, Texas. I thought I had everything figured out, a thriving business, a beautiful home, and a wife who I believed was my partner in every sense. Her name is Sarah, and on the surface, we had a great life together. We shared laughs, dreams, and plans for the future. At least, that's what I thought. But recently, things started to change. The first signs were subtle, little things that I brushed off as stress from work. Sarah had been a bit more irritable than usual, snapping at me for trivial reasons. I noticed her texting more frequently, but she always claimed it was work-related or just chatting with friends. I remember telling myself to trust her, that I was just being paranoid. After all, we had been together for 8 years, and she was my high school sweetheart. However, the changes became more pronounced. She started going to the gym more often, spending late nights at work, and her phone suddenly became a fortress. She'd often put it face down on the table, a gesture I had never really thought twice about before. But now it felt like a warning sign, a red flag flapping in the wind that I was too afraid to admit was there. One Friday evening, I had planned a nice dinner to celebrate our anniversary. I was excited, hoping to rekindle some of that spark. As I was setting the table, I heard Sarah's phone buzz repeatedly from the kitchen counter. Curiosity got the better of me, and I picked it up, intending to silence it. What I saw stopped me cold. There it was, a string of messages from a man named Eric, someone I recognized as a rival business owner in town. My heart sank as I read the flirty exchanges, filled with inside jokes I had never heard, and admiration that felt so foreign to me now. I felt a mixture of anger and despair. This wasn't just some random guy. This was a competitor in our industry, someone who had tried to poach my clients before. My mind raced as I pieced together the timeline of her recent behavior. I opened another message, and the gut-wrenching truth hit me hard. They were meeting up, planning secret rendezvous under the guise of business meetings. The last message I read was an invitation to come over tonight, just us. I put the phone down, my hands shaking. I was crushed and furious. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but instead I paced back and forth, trying to collect my thoughts. The idea of confronting Sarah filled me with dread, but I knew I had to say something. I couldn't let this go unaddressed. When she finally came home, all smiles and energy, I felt a storm brewing inside me. The dinner I had planned felt like a farce now. I took a deep breath and confronted her. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Her expression changed instantly, the smile fading as she sensed something was off. "What's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence. "I know about Eric," I blurted out, watching her face pale. The panic in her eyes told me all I needed to know. I had struck a nerve. "What are you talking about?" she stammered, her voice rising a pitch as I recounted the messages I had found. Each word felt like a dagger, and I could see the facade of our life together crumbling in front of me. She didn't deny it, at least not outright. Instead, she twisted the narrative, claiming it was all innocent, just business. "Jake, it's not what you think. He's just a friend, someone I network with," she insisted. But the more she spoke, the more I realized how deep the betrayal ran. Every excuse felt rehearsed, another lie layered on top of the last. The emotional impact of her betrayal hit me like a freight train. I felt anger boiling under my skin, but there was also a deep sadness pooling in my stomach. In that moment, I knew things would never be the same. I was at a crossroads, faced with a decision that would shape the rest of my life. What would I do now? Would I fight for my marriage or take a different path? To be continued. As I stood there staring at Sarah, the weight of her betrayal pressed down on me like a heavy blanket. I felt a whirlwind of emotions, rage, sadness, disbelief, all mingling together in a chaotic spiral. I had to process everything. The woman I loved, my confidant, had betrayed me with someone who should have been a rival, not a friend. As she continued her feeble attempts at justifying her actions, I felt a cold resolve forming in the pit of my stomach. I wanted to scream at her, to demand she take responsibility for her actions, but what would that accomplish? Instead, I took a step back and tried to regain some composure. "You're telling me you've been flirting with Eric this entire time and it's just business. You expect me to believe that?" I shot back, my voice shaking with the effort to remain calm. Sarah's face turned defensive and she began to backtrack, attempting to paint herself as the victim. Jake, you're overreacting. It's not what you think. I never meant to hurt you. The more she spoke, the more infuriated I became. She had gotten caught and now she was trying to spin the narrative to save face. Her excuses felt like daggers, each one cutting deeper. We've been having problems and Eric was just there to listen. You've been so busy with your work. I felt neglected, she said, trying to elicit sympathy. It was classic gaslighting and I could see. Through it, every word she uttered felt like a betrayal, a reminder of our intimacy twisted into this betrayal. I took a deep breath, trying to rein in my emotions. So, you decided to fix our problems by sleeping with a competitor. I scoffed, incredulous at her reasoning. You could have talked to me, we could have worked on this together. Her silence spoke volumes. Guilt washed over her face, but she quickly masked it with indignation. You don't understand, I was lonely. You were always working late. Eric was there for me when you were. The words hit hard, making me realize how deeply hurt she really was. But it didn't excuse her actions. I felt my heart harden. I had given her my trust and she had thrown it away like it meant nothing. I can't do this right now, just I need some space, I said, feeling the adrenaline draining from my body. I turned and walked out of the room, needing to escape the suffocating atmosphere. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in bed, replaying the confrontation in my mind like a broken record. How could she do this to me? I thought about our life together, the memories we shared, and how they felt tainted now. It was hard to accept that the woman I loved had chosen a man who was my competitor. Why him? Why not someone I didn't know? That thought alone felt like a betrayal of its own. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with thoughts of revenge. This wasn't just about my marriage. This was about business as well. I thought about Eric and how he had always been a thorn in my side. He had tried to steal clients and undermine my business at every turn. I realized I could use this situation to my advantage. If Sarah had chosen to engage in an affair with him, then perhaps it was time to crush him in business. The next few days were a blur. I struggled to focus on work, finding it hard to concentrate while my thoughts tormented me. I started to put pieces together, planning my revenge not just on Eric, but also on Sarah. I had spent years building my firm and I wasn't about to let her or him ruin that. I began to formulate a plan. I knew I had to gather evidence of their affair, something I could use against Eric in the business world. I had connections, people who could help me dig into his operations. I wanted to expose him for who he was, to show my clients that he was not the trustworthy businessman he pretended to be. But first, I needed to confront Sarah again. She needed to know that I wasn't going to be the victim in this story. I was going to turn the tables, making sure that both she and Eric paid for their betrayal. As I walked into our home that evening, I felt a new sense of purpose coursing through me. I was no longer the hurt husband. I was a man with a plan. We need to talk again, I said firmly, knowing that this would be the start of something much bigger, to be continued. When I confronted Sarah again, I felt a surge of determination that I hadn't realized was building inside me. It was time for her to understand the depth of the consequences her actions had set in motion, not just for our marriage, but for her life and Eric. I walked into the living room where she sat curled up on the couch, a glass of wine in hand. The casualness of the scene felt surreal, considering the gravity of what had just transpired between us. Jake, please, can we not do this right now? She pleaded, her voice tinged with exhaustion. No, we're going to do this. You have no idea how much you've hurt me, and I need you to understand that, I replied, my tone steely. I wasn't here to coddle her feelings or soothe her guilt. I was here to lay down the law. Just tell me what you want, she said, rolling her eyes, clearly irritated that I had disrupted her evening. I want you to know that I'm not going to let you walk away from this without consequences. You think you can just play with people's lives without any repercussions. I leaned closer, my voice low and firm. You chose him over me. You chose to betray what we built together. Her expression shifted from annoyance to defensive anger. This is so unfair, Jake. You're making me the villain here, but you never listened to me. You were always working. I felt alone. Being alone doesn't justify cheating. You could have talked to me, you could have left if you felt that way. But instead, you chose to sleep with my rival. I shot back, the pain surging anew as I recalled every moment of her betrayal. I didn't mean for it to happen like that, she said, her voice wavering for the first time. I could sense the cracks in her defiance, and it felt good to see her floundering. Eric was just someone who understood me when you didn't. Understand you, I echoed, incredulous. He's a competitor, Sarah. He's the reason I've had to work late nights. You don't just get to excuse this away because you were feeling neglected. You threw away our marriage for what? A few moments of fun. The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the regret wash over her face, but it was too little, too late. I didn't want her apologies. I wanted her to know that I was taking control of my life again. I was done feeling like the victim. I want you to know that I'm going to take action against Eric and against you. You've made your choice, and now I'm going to make mine. I'm going to destroy his business, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows why. Her eyes widened with disbelief. You can't be serious. That's insane, Jake. Insane or not, it's happening. You've put me in this position. You both have. I turned away, feeling a sense of release wash over me as I finally voiced my intentions. I felt empowered in a way I hadn't for days. The following days were a whirlwind of planning and strategizing. I reached out to my contacts, and those in the industry who had grievances against Eric. I wanted to build a case that could dismantle him piece by piece. I spent hours digging into his business practices, searching for any impropriety that would give me leverage. I wasn't the only one with a vendetta against him. Several former clients had grievances about unfulfilled contracts and poor service. I reached out to them, gathering testimonies that painted Eric in a bad light. The more I uncovered, the more exhilarated I felt. Each revelation was a step closer to my revenge, and it felt empowering to take control back from Sarah and Eric. As I dove deeper into my plan, I struggled with the emotional toll it was taking on me. I had to manage my own business while orchestrating this scheme, and it was exhausting. At times, I'd find myself questioning whether I was doing the right thing. Was I betraying my own values? But then I'd remember the betrayal I'd suffered and the lies I'd been forced to confront, and a fire would reignite within me. I couldn't let Sarah's betrayal go unpunished, and Eric had to pay the price for his role in this as well. I wanted to crush him in business and make sure Sarah understood that her actions had consequences. But with every step I took, I began to realize that my revenge wasn't just about Eric. It was also about me reclaiming my life. I was no longer just a husband shattered by infidelity. I was a man rising from the ashes, ready to fight back. One evening, I sat down with a legal advisor I trusted, laying out everything I had discovered about Eric's business. We talked strategy and the best ways to leverage the evidence I had gathered. The more we discussed, the more confident I felt. I was in control, and it felt liberating. The thought of losing my marriage still gnawed at me, but I was resolute. I would confront Sarah again soon, and I needed her to understand that I wouldn't be the same man she once knew. To be continued. As I continued following through with my plans for revenge, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease whenever I thought about confronting Sarah again. I had spent days focusing on Eric, but the emotional fallout of Sarah's betrayal was still looming over me. I realized that before I could fully execute my plan against Eric, I needed to address the mess between Sarah and me. One evening, I summoned the courage to sit down with her again. The atmosphere in the house felt heavy, charged with unspoken words and unresolved tension. I needed to confront not just her betrayal, but also what it meant for us moving forward, if there even was a moving forward. "Sarah, we need to talk again," I said, my voice steady but firm. She looked up from her laptop, surprise flickering across her face. "Is this about Eric again?" she asked, a mix of defensiveness and resignation in her tone. "Yes, and it's about us," I replied, my heart racing. "I've been thinking a lot about what you did, and I need you to understand something." "Jake, please, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. Sorry doesn't cut it," I interrupted. "You've chosen to betray our trust. You didn't just hurt me, you hurt our marriage. I'm trying to figure out how to deal with that." "Then let's work on it," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "We can fix this. I can promise you it was a mistake." I felt anger bubbling up again, but I forced myself to remain level-headed. "You think I can just forget about what happened, that I can just sweep it under the rug? It's not that simple, Sarah." I know. Just give me a chance to show you how much I want to make this work," she insisted, her eyes pleading for understanding. I paused, weighing my options. Deep down, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think that our love could survive this, that we could rebuild. But I also knew I had to prioritize my own healing first. "I can't make that promise right now," I said finally. "I'm angry and I'm hurt. I need time to process everything." Sarah's expression shifted, fear creeping in. "What does that mean for us? Are you saying you want to separate?" "I don't know yet," I admitted, the honesty stinging. "But you need to know that while I'm figuring this out, I'm not just going to sit back and let you and Eric continue doing whatever you want. I'm taking action. I'm going to expose him for what he is, a fraud." The realization of what I was planning to do hit her, and I could see the panic set in. "Jake, you can't. That will ruin everything. It's just business." "Just business?" I scoffed, incredulous at her dismissal. "This isn't just business, Sarah. This is my life. This is our life. You've made it personal, and now it's time for me to take back control." "Please, don't do this," she begged. "I don't want to lose you, but this will make things worse." I stared at her, steeling myself against the guilt that threatened to creep in. "You should have thought about that before you decided to cheat on me. You have to understand that I'm not the same person you married anymore. I won't be a victim in this." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving her to grapple with the reality of our situation. The following weeks were a whirlwind of efforts to dismantle Eric's business. I gathered more evidence and rallied my connections to ensure that they would stand by me. My legal advisor helped me compile a dossier against him, filled with testimonies, accusations, and instances of malpractice that would destroy his reputation in the industry. Each evening, I found myself consumed by the process. I felt a sense of power and control that I hadn't felt in ages. But I also felt a void, a nagging emptiness where my love for Sarah used to reside. I was letting my anger guide me, and while it felt good to take back control, I couldn't help but wonder if this was the path I truly wanted to pursue. As I prepared to execute the final stages of my plan, I felt a mixture of excitement and dread. I was about to confront Eric in a way that would change everything. I wanted him to feel the full weight of what he had done, not just to me, but to the countless people who depended on him for their livelihoods. As the day approached, I could sense the tension building, not just between Sarah and me, but also in my own heart. I was determined to see this through, but I had to wonder, would it really bring me the satisfaction I thought it would? Would it heal my wounds, or would it only deepen them? On the day of my confrontation, I felt like I was stepping into battle. I dressed sharply, determined to exude confidence and authority. I had set up a meeting with Eric under the pretense of discussing potential business collaboration. It was time to turn the tables and expose him for the fraud he truly was. When I arrived at the cafe where we agreed to meet, my heart raced. As I waited, I couldn't escape the gnawing doubt in the back of my mind. Was I doing the right thing? But before I could dwell on it further, Eric walked in, his smug demeanor putting me on edge. He spotted me and sauntered over, his confidence oozing from every pore. "Jake, good to see you," he said, extending a hand. "Eric," I replied, keeping my expression neutral but my heart pounding. The game was on, to be continued. As Eric approached, I steeled myself for the confrontation that was about to unfold. His casual demeanor only fueled my determination. I couldn't let him see how much I was affected by what had transpired between him and Sarah. I forced a smile, extending my hand to shake his. "Thanks for meeting with me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Of course, I hear you've been doing well with your business." He leaned back in his chair, a self-satisfied grin plastered on his face. "Let's cut to the chase, shall we?" I said, deciding it was best to skip the pleasantries. "I didn't invite you here to exchange compliments." His grin faltered slightly, but he quickly masked it. "Okay, I'm all ears. What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything I had gathered pressing down on me. "I know about your little affair with Sarah. The look on his face shifted from bemusement to irritation in an instant. "What are you talking about?" he snapped, his bravado slipping. "I've seen the messages, Eric. I know how you've been flirting with her, how you've used your position to prey on her while I've been busy with work," I said, my voice low and controlled. It felt good to finally say it, to confront him with the truth. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "You think this is about you, that I care what you think. Sarah was just someone to pass the time. She was bored and I gave her what she wanted, attention." Anger surged through me, but I held it back. I had to be smart about this. "You think you can just brush it off like that? You're using a married woman for your own amusement, and I'm not going to let you get away with it." His confidence returned, a smirk creeping back onto his lips. "You think you can intimidate me, Jake? This is business. If Sarah wants to be with me, that's her choice. You can't control her." "Control? This isn't about control," I replied, feeling my blood boil. "This is about accountability. You have no idea who you're messing with. I've gathered evidence against your business practices, and trust me, it's enough to ruin you." Eric scoffed, leaning back in his chair. "What evidence? You think a few petty complaints will do anything? You don't scare me." "Oh, it's more than just complaints," I said, leaning in closer, my voice low and menacing. "I've spoken to your former clients, your shady contracts, the lies you've spun. I have it all documented. If you think I won't go public with it, you're mistaken." The color drained from his face for a moment, but then he quickly regained his composure. "You're bluffing. You don't have the guts to take this any further. If you did, you would have done it already." I could see that my words were beginning to sink in. I had hit a nerve, pulling back the curtain on the facade he had built around himself. "I'm not bluffing, Eric," I said, my tone firm. "This is just about you. It's about the people you've hurt. I won't stand by while you deceive everyone around you." He leaned forward, his expression hardening. "You'll regret this, Jake. You think you're the victim here, but you're just as pathetic as the rest of us." In that moment I understood the truth. He thrived on chaos, on the pain of others. He was a parasite, feeding off the vulnerabilities of people like Sarah. I felt a mix of revulsion and anger toward him, but I couldn't let him provoke me. "You can threaten all you want, but this isn't going away. I'm taking action. You'll be hearing from my lawyer soon," I said, standing up to leave. "Good luck with that," he sneered, but I could see the fear in his eyes. He knew I meant business. As I walked away from the cafe, my heart raced and adrenaline coursed through my veins. I felt powerful, almost euphoric. I was finally taking control of my life, putting an end to the chaos that had enveloped me for weeks. But as I drove home, the weight of everything began to settle back in. I was still left with the wreckage of my marriage. I had fought against Eric, but the deeper conflict remained unresolved. I needed to confront Sarah again, not just about her affair, but about her role in this mess. When I got home, I found her sitting in the same spot I had left her earlier, her expression tense and nervous. "Did you talk to him?" she asked, her voice shaky. "I did," I replied, the tension in my chest tightening again. "And now it's time to have our own conversation. You need to understand what's at stake here." "Jake, I want to apologize again. I never wanted any of this to happen," she said, her voice pleading. I shook my head, feeling a wave of frustration. "It's not just about your apology, Sarah. It's about accountability. You've put me in a situation where I have to fight for my reputation and my business. And for what? A fling with a man who clearly doesn't care about you or me." She opened her mouth to respond, but I held up a hand to stop her. "I need you to understand that if we're going to get through this, you have to be honest with yourself. I don't want to be in a marriage built on lies. I need to know if you're truly remorseful or if this is just about saving face." The silence hung heavy in the air as she processed my words. I wanted her to understand that this was bigger than us. It affected our lives, our futures. "Jake, I realize now how foolish I've been," she finally said, her voice shaking. "I didn't think about the consequences. I just felt so lost and alone. But I want to make it right. I'll do anything you need to prove that to you." Her sincerity caught me off guard, but could I trust her? Could I believe in the possibility of redemption? "Actions speak louder than words, Sarah. If you're serious, you need to show me. I can't go back to the way things were, and I don't want to live in a world where I'm constantly questioning your integrity," I said, feeling the weight of my own emotions. Tears welled in her eyes, and I could see the pain etched across her face. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to show you that." I can be better. I want to rebuild what we had. I took a deep breath, contemplating her words. I didn't know where we would go from here, but I realized I wasn't ready to throw everything away just yet. Maybe we could still find a way to salvage our marriage, but it would take a lot of work on both our parts. For now, I was focused on taking down Eric, but deep down, I knew I had to address the cracks in our relationship. It was going to be a long road ahead, but perhaps it was a road worth traveling together. To be continued. The days following my confrontation with Sarah felt like an emotional roller coaster. I had committed myself to taking down Eric, but I also had a renewed determination to work on my marriage. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see the betrayal etched into my mind, but there was also a flicker of hope that maybe we could rebuild what had been lost. I took immediate action against Eric. I finalized my plan and gathered the evidence I had compiled, ready to strike a decisive blow. With the support of my legal advisor, I filed a formal complaint against him, detailing everything I had discovered about his underhanded business practices and his affair with Sarah. I knew this would not only tarnish his reputation, but also disrupt his business in ways he could never anticipate. The day I sent those documents was both liberating and terrifying. I felt a rush of adrenaline and a sense of justice. He would have to face the consequences of his actions. But there was also a lingering anxiety. What if this didn't go as planned? What if I lost everything in the process? I made sure to keep Sarah in the loop about my actions. She had expressed her desire to support me, but I also needed to see her commitment firsthand. We had to face this together if we wanted to salvage anything from the wreckage of our marriage. "I'm proud of you for standing up to him," she said one evening as we sat together, her hand resting on mine. "I know this is hard, but it feels like you're taking control of your life again." "It's more than that," I replied, looking into her eyes. "This is about holding people accountable for their actions. I won't let Eric get away with hurting me or anyone else." As I prepared for the inevitable fallout of my actions, I began to see Sarah in a different light. She was showing a willingness to own her mistakes and make amends. I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild our relationship. Weeks rolled by as I awaited Eric's reaction to the complaint. The tension lingered in the air, but I focused on my work and on mending what was broken in my marriage. I made it clear to Sarah that we had to communicate openly, no matter how hard it was. Each time we addressed the lingering hurt, it felt like we were chiseling away at the walls that had built up between us. Then, the day came when I received a call from my lawyer. Eric's company was being investigated, and the allegations were serious. My heart raced as I listened to the details, the excitement building within me. This was happening. Justice was being served, and I felt like I was finally taking charge of my life. When I informed Sarah about the news, I saw a mix of relief and worry on her face. "What happens next?" she asked, her voice full of concern. "We fight. We stand together against whatever comes next," I replied, determination solidifying my resolve. As the investigation unfolded, I started to notice changes in Sarah. She was more engaged, taking steps to show that she was serious about our relationship. She would leave little notes for me during the day, planning surprise dinners, showing me that she was committed to making amends. "I want us to be better, Jake. I want to earn your trust back," she said one night as we sat on the couch, watching TV in a comfortable silence. It was a simple moment, but it felt monumental. "I appreciate that, Sarah," I replied, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. "But it's going to take time. We can't rush this." "I know," she said, nodding. "I'm willing to wait. I just want you to know that I realize how foolish I've been." As the investigation into Eric continued, the pressure began to mount on him. Slowly, I watched as his business started to crumble. Clients began to pull out, and his reputation was tarnished in the industry. Each piece of news was a small victory, but I remained cautious. I didn't want to celebrate too soon. Then, one evening, I received a notification that Eric was publicly responding to the allegations. He claimed it was a witch hunt orchestrated by a jealous competitor, me. He painted himself as a victim, but I could see the cracks forming in his facade. The more he fought back, the more desperate he appeared. In a shocking twist, Sarah came to me with an idea. What if I reached out to some of your clients? I could help reassure them about your integrity, show them that you're fighting against Eric's lies, she suggested. It was a bold move, one that could either solidify our path forward or set us back even further. But I could see the sincerity in her eyes, and I knew she was serious about making things right. Okay, I said cautiously. If you think you can help, then let's do it. But you need to be honest with them about what happened. There can't be any more lies. She nodded vigorously. I promise no more lies. I'll be honest about everything, even the affair. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Sarah reached out to clients, and I watched as she fought to repair the damage she had caused. Her honesty was refreshing, and I saw a new side of her that I hadn't recognized before, a side that was willing to take responsibility and fight for our future together. As the investigation into Eric's business reached its peak, I couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my life and my marriage. I was taking strides toward healing, and so was Sarah. Eventually, Eric's business was officially dissolved due to the findings against him. The weight that lifted off my shoulders felt almost euphoric. I had fought for my integrity, and I had won, not just against him, but for myself. In the aftermath, Sarah and I sat together in our living room, reflecting on everything we had been through. I didn't think we would make it, I admitted, my voice low. Neither did I, she replied, tears brimming in her eyes. But I want to move forward if you'll let me. I want to rebuild. I took a deep breath, feeling the pain of the past wash away bit by bit. I wasn't sure what the future held for us, but I knew that together we could face it. Let's take it one day at a time, I said, offering her my hand. We'll figure it out together. As we held hands, I felt a flicker of hope. We were on the road to healing, and while it would be a long journey, I believed we could make it. Love isn't always easy, but it's worth fighting for. And in the end, that's exactly what I had learned. After the storm, there's always a chance to rebuild. I was ready for whatever came next.